We're back for another session. What I want to talk about in this session is John the Baptist. John the Baptist, as explained in this book called the Gospel of John, an expository on the Gospel of John written by H.A. Ironside. And Mr. Ironside explains it like this: John the Baptist was a pivotal point between the Old Testament and the New Testament. John the Baptist. John the Baptist is mentioned as the last prophet, and Jesus is the true prophet. John the Baptist saw Jesus coming, saw him in person. John the Baptist baptized Jesus. John the Baptist knew Jesus was the Messiah, coming forth to save everyone from their sins. And John the Baptist stepped aside because Jesus was coming forth with the new covenant. John the Baptist was around the end of the old covenant, and Jesus is the new covenant. A very unique person, John. And he points out in this book there were many Johns that God used to start moves. John Calvin, John Wesley, John the Apostle. Let's see if I can find him in here. Here it is. Where John says, "I am the voice of one crying in the wilderness, prepare ye the way for the Lord." And Ironside says here, you can't see a voice, you can only hear it. John did not want the people to become occupied with him, so he was only the voice heard. He wanted Jesus to be seen and heard. John, he was not concerned about himself, but only concerned about Christ being glorified. Well, I can't find that part where he talks about the different Johns. I'll catch that up in another one. Let me close with this. John was a unique character, called for a unique mission. John the Baptist. And here's what Ironside says: "It is a great thing when God lays hold of a man and says, 'I want you to go on an errand for me.' Do we hear those calls?" And Ironside says, as though God was speaking, "I have saved your soul. I want you to go forth to preach my gospel. I want you to go forth to be a witness for me." And Saul of Tarsus, who became Paul, Saul was in his 30s when he met Jesus. So it doesn't have to happen at a young age. It can happen at any age. And the Lord said to Saul, "I have appeared to you for this purpose, to make you a minister and a witness unto men." A witness is somebody who testifies, who talks about what they have seen. I witness about what I have seen God do in my life and in other people's lives. That's a witness. Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John wrote the Gospels. They were there with Jesus. They saw him. They were witnesses. We see him spiritually today. We witness what he does in our lives. And God calls men and women to be witnesses. Are we willing to step out when he calls us and do what he tells us to do? Or are we going to let that light shine and then say, nah, that's not me? He wouldn't have that of me. Would not have that of me. But you know what? A preacher I know says this, Andrew Shearman, because an old preacher said to him once, and he says, Andrew says, he pointed his bony finger at me, and he says, God's method is a man, and you are the man, and God's time is now. And I say to you, as I say to myself, God's method is a man. He does everything through men. He does many things through men, and the time is now. Respond to his call, because God's method is men and women as witnesses for him to build his kingdom. God's method is a man, and you are the man, and God's time is now. God's method is a woman, and you are the woman, and God's time is now. You believe it. Believe it. He's got things great and mighty for you. He has things for you to do that are beyond your wildest dreams. Listen for him. The light's shining. His light is shining upon you. Draw it in through your eyes and your heart. Draw it in through your mind. Because he wants you to be a witness. But first, acknowledge Jesus, the light that shines on you, that can forgive you and does forgive you for every sin you've ever done or ever will done. He is King. He is the Lord. He suffered and died for you and me, rose from the dead, so that we can be set free. For some reason, I look up in the sky, and it's a full moon. It's a full moon. There it is. A full moon. In the beginning was the Word. The Word was God. The Word was with God. And in the beginning, the Word, Jesus, created everything. He created that moon. He created this planet. He created the universe. In the beginning.